public defender, Fulton County, Chandelle Summer. Chandelle, just because it's sort of such a wild thing to consider, a Secret Service SUV backing up to the Sally Port at the Fulton County Jail. What's it like inside the Fulton County Jail?
Well, it's not a pretty sight. Good evening, Leland. It's a jail that's undergoing right now an investigation by the Department of Justice for having lice and bed bugs. But I don't expect former President Trump will be there for very long. They're going to expedite this booking, and he's going to go out in grand style like he came in. I mean, this is the most presidential surrender I've ever seen in my life, and I think it's unprecedented, and he will absolutely turn this into such a win under these circumstances.
Yeah, well,
I think it's a big mistake.
We're all covering it in prime time. That's kind of it is. I'm interested in your take, simply from a legal perspective, of the idea of these charges under RICO, racketeer influence corrupt organizations, because Georgia has a very broad RICO statute, and Fani Willis, who's the DA there, has been both praised by Republicans for using RICO aggressively, but also at times has gotten herself into trouble, right? Because it's pretty easy to overcharge in these cases. What's realistically the president's lawyer's chance, and what do you make of the request for an October trial?
I think Fani Willis is a little RICO crazy. She's already involved in a huge RICO case with Young Slime Life, a supposed rap organization that is involved in all sorts of crimes. They haven't even gotten a jury seated. They've been trying to qualify a panel since January. That's unheard of in Fulton County. There are so many rank and file crimes out there, murders, rapes, robberies. She should be focusing on this. These charges have already been indicted by Jack Smith up in Washington, involving basically the same conduct. So the idea that she's going to go through it in great detail and try to pull in a wider net, I think it is politically motivated. I think she was too far down the road when the federal indictment came down, and she couldn't back off. She'd already spent 2 years on the investigation. So it's unfortunate that the Fulton County taxpayers, like me, are going to have to pay for this prosecution, but it's really not necessary. This was basically just bad lawyering. It was an idea.
You mentioned the investigation because there was a grand jury that was impaneled, a special grand jury for this. And it's worth noting because as we're watching the former president now being booked on these charges, who's behind them? It's both Fani Willis, who's the prosecutor, but then also the foreperson of that special grand jury, you might remember, gave some interviews that called into question sort of how seriously the process was really being taken. A couple of those sound bites. Take a listen.
This was a really cool experience. We were never instructed to avoid all the news. I kind of wanted to subpoena the former president. I thought it'd be really cool to get 60 seconds with President Trump. We definitely discussed him a lot in the room. There's a difference between the crimes we were called to investigate and crimes that were committed in the room. There are no major plot twists waiting for you. I will be sad if nothing happens.
Chandelle, does the president's lawyers get to use all that?
I think that's a young woman who was excited about being part of the process. And believe it or not, in all of the juries I've selected in my career, people are always kind of wanting to be on the jury. And this is a big one she can talk about forever. It's a celebrity case and Americans love reality TV. So, but the idea of the special purpose grand jury was challenged by Trump's attorney, Drew Fendling, as being unconstitutional. And they really didn't have much of a purpose other than to do the investigation. The actual indictment of the president came from yet another grand jury that she called in for that purpose just a couple of weeks ago. So the whole special purpose grand jury was much ballyhooed about, and they did issue a report, but it was only released in certain parts. So it's really unclear as to whether or not you even can call a special purpose grand jury in a criminal case legally.
Huh. All right. Well, Chandelle, we appreciate it. We're going to have you back, obviously, as this case works its way through, because you've tried these cases and you understand what's involved, especially in the RICO world of this. It's been much ballyhooed and also much criticized. So thank you. We appreciate it. It's nice to see you. As we look now.
Okay, class. Who